Hello, I'm Beata Nowakowska, and this is Tim. We will talk a little bit about effectiveness. So, you talked a little yesterday about permission and their influence on effectiveness. Could you expand the subject?
Well, sure. So the thing that I was pointing out to people was that permission is an awesome superpower of managers. And the way it works is that people will only do work they feel is within their range of permission. They feel like if they step outside of their permission, it will threaten their position in the company, possibly their future employment. So that has a more powerful influence than even competence and effectiveness on the job. I could have a bad release, but I can't cross my boss, right? I could have a bug, but heaven forbid I should, go over my boss's head. So people have a strong sense of permission. And that really controls what they can and can't do in their day. And permission is extra powerful. We underestimate. So if I say, hey, I want to go to this conference, and my boss says no, then to me he's just said no to all conferences at all times for all of the future. And in my head, my little doppelganger, my image of my boss, when I think, hey, I'm going to go to the Agile by Example, is going to say, no, we don't go to conferences. And I'm probably not going to ask. So it's not even that I'm going to be refused permission in the future, I'm not even going to ask for it because I've been refused once. So it feels like it's absolute and eternal and unreasoned. And when in fact, the boss probably meant, you shouldn't go to this conference right now because we have important things to do. Let's talk about that later. But a no is a no forever. So a lot of employees live well underneath the amount of grace and trust they're granted, and they don't even know it. The other thing about it is we don't feel like it's conditional at all. So it's not only eternal and personal. You said no to me, but you said yes to someone else. Well, that means that I'm not the favorite. I'm the one people don't like. So I use permission unintentionally. You can use permission to say I'm not as good or I'm better than. And that sets up a competition, which is never good in teams. So a manager can pay attention to how they use permission. So as a manager, I can say, you know what, not this time. And that limits the period of my non-permission, right? And I can also say, I want you to do these things. And if somebody actually does something I told them to do in an inconvenient way, I have to be careful. Because now if I chide them for the inconvenient way they did it, then I've taken permission back. And it should never be taken back once it's given. Anyhow, where we're getting with all of this is, developers are doing a job that requires them to think, as our testers, as our managers, right? And we're all under a permission system. Whether we can acquire the new habits we need, and whether we can acquire the new talents and skills and information, even basically getting educated, depends on if we feel the permission for it. Is that expansive enough?
Yeah. So what other advices would you give the managers to not destroy productivity by the superpower that they have?
I think there has to be an intention to create more permission, but you have to learn to do that by something I call a trust transaction, right? So maybe you're a developer working with me. I want to give you more permission so that you can do a better job, because I believe in this. So what I have to do is support you doing the things that you need to do. When I give you training, I can't take that back or complain about it. If I give you an opportunity to stretch and it doesn't work perfectly the first time, I can't take it back. So I have to create enough trust for you to grow into. I should trust you more than I have to as a manager. That's a different change. And it means I have to teach myself as a manager how to phrase my permission correctly and how to phrase my refusals. I should learn how to phrase my refusals in a new way.
That's kind of scary. Why should I trust people so much as a manager?
Well, there's a whole lot more work that can get done if we're not defending against each other. So if you and I are to be working together and you constantly have to protect yourself from me, then we're not going to get as much done.
So how else can I promote teamwork?
This is a good one. The most important thing is to never allow competition within a team. The best teams, all of their threats are external, so they're free to work together. Also, so not rating us individually, but rating us as a group. Work assignments. If you assign work to individuals, you're going to get individual work. So instead, you have to assign the work to a team and allow the team to work out which people and how many are going to do the job. And you have to give that much trust to them that they can assign and execute on the assignment as they need to. And of course, guidance is always good within the realm of permission.
Let's be a little bit more precise. How to assign the work to a team, not a team members?
Okay, well, the first thing you have to do is, if you have a Kanban board that you're using or a storyboard, get rid of personal swim lanes. You cannot have a swim lane with a person's name on it. That has to go very first thing, because as long as that's an individual accountability. That destroys all teamwork. Number two is, you should only ever ask who's working on something if you want to ask a question about the work. So you pay attention to the work and not the people. Because you're really not supposed to manage individuals, you manage work and you manage teams. And then the next piece is, when you find 4 people sitting doing one thing, you need to understand that most of the work we do doesn't look like work. Our work is 11/12 mental. It's an intellectual challenge. So when people are working hard is when they're staring at the ceiling and not typing. It's when they're talking together and not typing. That's when most important work is done. And the typing is just a minor detail. So, they're reading the code together. That's a good thing. One person is reading the code, 2 people are looking at Google. They're probably trying to figure it out. So we have to allow that. We have to allow the space for the learning. And that's, again, giving the team as an entity trust to grow into and not trying to micromanage the internals of that team. But the second that I set your KPI for the year and my KPI, when they differ, when we have separate goals, now we have to have friction, because we can't be in one space and move in 2 different directions without creating friction. So we have to kind of let go of the individuals. That also means we can't reward individual effort. I've seen teams where an individual reward given to one team member caused that one team member to lose their respect within the group. So the one that the manager rewards is the one that everybody avoids, which is exactly opposite of what you want to do, right? So there's justice for being a good team member. There's justice for contributing. But it takes away the opportunity for heroics. And we should never have been really giving rewards for heroics to begin with.
Okay, so the last questions. You've probably seen some effective teams. When you step into the room of the effective teams, what do you see?
Usually you will see clusters of people who are working together on a story and they're talking. It's not a quiet space. Usually you will see people who are co-located, seating together to work on something, which means that they're not scattered in cubicles across 15 floors. Usually you will see that there's a small number of tasks in flight. And if you count the clusters of people, you know how many tasks there are, right? And hopefully those tasks are small and they're stories. They're complete things that can be delivered. When we see our effort is going into slicing things, working them together, doing the hard thinking work, and delivering quickly, then we see we have an effective team. Even if it takes 7 or 8 releases to get a feature out, it's always releasable, it's always working, and the work is always visible. With individual work, it's hard to know if anybody's actually doing anything, and if it's only released at the end of the sprint, then you don't know if they're accomplishing anything. So when we see highly effective teams, it's continually delivering in groups, all the people together, and sharing.
So thank you very much.